Colorado has an independence ethics, whatever it is, panel, and they take care of unethical behavior that politicians do. And so they have to be very, very ethical to begin with. Well, to talk about it, Suzanne Staiert from Secretary of State Scott Gessler's office, and a good friend of ours, Miller Hudson, a wonderful Democrat you can read in the Colorado Statesman. First of all, give me just a little background. Colorado's Ethics Commission, what is it? It sounds so good. It's ethical.
Well, it was placed on the ballot by Jared Polis when he was trying to,
ingratiate himself to the voters
and show how ethical he was. But it's premised on the notion that our elected officials and most of our city employees are unethical.
It's not a bad assumption. You used to be in the legislature. It's a good assumption.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Now, this was Amendment 41.
Right.
And what it did is it had limits on how much you could gift to anybody. Now legislators have to buy their own cup of coffee, and they have to keep track of every sandwich somebody gets them. But it also, if there's a violation of this, there has to be some sort of process by which to beat up on an elected official. What is that process?
Well, the process really is that any citizen that has a beef can take their grievance to the Independence Ethics Commission. Now, they're also responsible for making the case. There were a few people testifying the other day that was an unfair burden for an average citizen to have to prosecute the charge that they want to bring.
Let's bring it over here. Now, I've known Scott for a long time, and he is a completely unethical man in every part of his life. So this is worthwhile doing. But the complaints that have been lodged against him have been going through courts, and it is getting to be a circus. And when we find out that out of this 5-member ethics panel, that three of them are Hickenlooper appointees, it's not what you call real fair shot. So Scott's running against a team that has donated to Hickenlooper's campaign. There's an ethical issue there, but what was the charge or the allegation or whatever it was, and how ridiculous has this gotten?
Well, that was really part of the problem, is that the Ethics Commission was set up to take care of gift buying, influence peddling it was called. And what it turned into with the secretary, was them trying to enforce something they call other standards of conduct. And they have repeatedly refused to define what those standards are. So when they brought Secretary Gessler before the commission, they never told him what he was charged with. And in fact, we...
Do it. No, let's do one of these. So our Secretary of State is brought forward in front of the Independent Ethics Commission to face some allegations that he doesn't know what they are until he faces this panel, of whom most have donated to his opponent in the upcoming election.
Right.
Good stuff. Keep going.
Yeah. So he goes before the panel, and nobody ever alleged that he took a gift. And so, we had to try to guess, well, what is it that they're alleging? Initially, Ethics Watch, who's been the primary user of the Ethics Commission, the two have kind of coexisted for each other.
And this is a left-leaning group that picks politicians they don't like, usually Republicans, and lodges complaints.
Yeah, and in terms of complaints before the Ethics Commission or campaign finance violations, they've always been Republicans. And so they pick Republicans, they take them before the Ethics Commission, and this was an Ethics Commission that was fine playing a shell game. As the case moved along, the charges continued to change, the investigation continued to change.
What is the charge? I'm sorry, help me out.
The charge was that he went to a legal education seminar out in Florida, and it was put on by the Republican Lawyers Conference, and so he was charged with misuse of state money, essentially.
Since he's a lawyer, going to a lawyer's meeting.
Right, and it was a conference that had been certified by the Supreme Court for ethics credit, and he went out there and he spoke and he gave a presentation.
So there was no gift?
No.
And wasn't 41 all about buying influence, buying those gifts?
Absolutely, and there's plenty of law if you're breaking the law. I mean, just look at what happened in Adams County, where commissioners were getting their driveways paved and whatnot. There's about a half a dozen people who've gone to jail. If the district attorney wants to stop criminal behavior on the part of elected officials. There's plenty of law to get that done. This is more like Monty Python. Nobody ever expects the Spanish Inquisition. Having sat through the hearings, it was just disgraceful. What took place.
You're a Democrat here, so yes. I want to. You and I have been odds on many different campaigns, and I've won most of them, I might say. You say it's disgraceful. Why?
Well, the issues that Suzanne is talking about, it's kind of a moving target. And then in the first place, what's unethical about a Republican Secretary of State going to a Republican event? What's wrong with the governor, who's now fighting off similar charges, being involved with the Democratic Governors Association? Does this prick your conscience as a voter that partisan elected officials will be involved in partisan organizations? That it certainly doesn't bother me. I kind of expect that.
But let's get to the technicality of this ethics commission, because I remember Amendment 41. We all said, and any of us who were around politics, I hate politicians. Politicians hate me. It's a wonderful hate-hate relationship. This wasn't going to help. This was just going to complicate being able to talk to representatives, being able to, buy your teacher. They had to exclude teachers from this. So you can give your teacher a present, but you can't give somebody else a gift. I get that. We want to have limits on it, and we want to have some sort of check and balance. People of Colorado were not foolish to say we want some sort of process by which allegations like this aren't just done in the press, but that there's something to it. What's wrong with the Independent Ethics Commission taking care of these type of allegations? Let me start over here.
Well, I think if they had some standards and people knew up front what the standards were, that maybe there would be an argument. If Amendment 41 had been written so that it only banned gift giving and it didn't have this other standard. I mean, to charge
that's
somebody
just one little phrase, gift giving or other standards
of conduct.
And so we don't know what other standards of. It's against the House and Senate rules not to wear a necktie in the chambers. I mean, is that a?
According to the Independent Ethics Commission, they have jurisdiction over everything. They are a super committee with no oversight.
Is this a star chamber? I mean,
absolutely. And it's whatever happens to offend the complainant becomes at least a charge that it's unethical.
How are these 5 members chosen to be on this ethics commission? You would think this has got to be the big stuff. I mean, are these judges? Is there a legal proceeding? Do you get a lawyer?
Well, most of them have turned out to be former legislators, ones that had reputations for, high moral and ethical standards. I'm not quite sure how.
Give me a break. Our legislature. All right, keep going.
How you get there, but you probably have a better. I know. There's some legislative appointments and there's some governor's appointments.
So the governor gets to do it. And again, the majority of these people have donated to the governor's campaign, but I didn't know the legislature gets to pick some. I think minority and majority get to pick some, and the governor gets to pick something. All right, but it's just a person. What force of law do they have? Is it run like a court? Do you get to meet your accuser? Do you get to see the evidence before you get to go?
Well, it couldn't be, because you don't get to see your evidence before you get to go. And if the Ethics Commission had their way, Secretary Gessler wouldn't have had an attorney either. Because when I appeared before the Ethics Commission, they put out a ruling that I wasn't allowed to speak because the office was not implicated in the ethics complaint. Now, a similar ruling hasn't been issued for Governor Hickenlooper. He's there with his attorneys. But after
again, let me do the. Excuse me. Let me see if I understand what's going on. So, Gessler could go, but he could not have an attorney.
Well, he couldn't have me.
He couldn't have you, and you're an attorney. Mm-hmm. The governor is facing a complaint from the right this time, but he can have an attorney.
He has 3.
He has 3. Mm-hmm. It's good being governor.
And then we asked the Ethics Commission, okay, then can we have a legal defense fund to pay the legal fees? And they said no, not unless you've been indicted. It would be an illegal gift to set up a legal defense fund.
So if I wanted to give $100 to offset Scott's ability to get a lawyer, like the governor has a lawyer, I couldn't give that to him. That would be over the $50 limit. Mm-hmm. So I'd have to find a pro bono attorney, I suppose,
which would be a gift.
Which would be a gift.
Right.
Right. It's listen. This organization serves no useful purpose that I can detect. Having sat through these, they pretend to be a court. They go through the motions of legal presentation and all that, but it wouldn't pass muster.
So when they bring down a judgment, again, when 3 out of 5 of them donate to one candidate and are now sitting in judgment of that very same candidate, what is it? Because Hickenlooper will be in front of this trial, this tribunal,
Unless they dismiss the charges and say they're frivolous.
And they have the power to do that.
They have the power to do that.
And
this is a kangaroo court. What am I missing here?
Yeah, you're not missing a thing. It's a kangaroo court.
I mean, it's just set up to get media attention, relevance.
Besmirch people's reputations. It doesn't matter what happens later. You can say, Jon Caldara is running for office, but he was dragged in front of the Independent Ethics Commission.
Yeah, it is. It's a scarlet letter.
Right.
There was a charge, but then again, anybody can bring up a charge anywhere, and this is part of Amendment 41 that Jared Polish put forward, and I think it was Common Cause that wrote it. Now, as a partisan guy, this stinks right now, and more Republicans are getting there, but I understand times change, and at some point it's going to be Republicans in charge, and you know what? 3 out of 5 members of that might be giving donations to the Republican governor who's sitting there, at which point, turnabout is fair play. Aren't people worried about this?
Well, they should be, because that's the whole point. It's not about party. It's about interpreting the law, and they're not doing that. They're not giving people notice. They're not letting them have attorneys. They're just making up their minds ahead of time, and then everything else is for show.
This is so bad, even the Denver Post editorial board agrees with you people. That makes me a little scared.
Well, there was a Democratic county commissioner out in Eagle County who got hassled because he had formerly served on the board of Habitat for Humanity, and now there was going to be a affordable housing project built by Habitat for Humanity, and it was eventually dismissed as frivolous, but you really need to read his letter explaining how he was treated.
All right, less than a minute here. What's the fix? All right, this is in law, and it's ethics, so if it seems good. What's the fix to this problem?
I think you have to. I think that's why Secretary Gessler has to keep going through the courts, because I think that's the only way this is ever going to get fixed. If
to have a real court, a real judge look at this and
an
go,
appellate court to say, we'll make a decision about this, and we always knew we were going to have to go that far, and I believe we have to do it, because otherwise it continues and continues, and every couple of years they'll bring somebody new up.
My advice to the legislature is don't fund it until they figure out how to fix it.
In the meantime, the costs just keep going and going, and the cost, of course, will be used to beat up Scott Gessler as it goes. What an ingenious plan. Miller, thank you. Suzanne, thank you. Thank you. Listen for me on 630 KHOW. Tell a friend about the Independence Institute. That's independenceinstitute.org. We'll see you next week.